Sebastian Schieke, business angel investor, entrepreneur, and founder of Sebastian Schieke and Company, helping high-performance CEOs building high-performance teams and developing resilient leadership. Today, I'm talking to Krzysztof Janusz, also called KJ. He's the co-founder and CSMO of Krzysztof SA, which is a strategy, portfolio management, technology, and consulting house. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because it really sort of brings me back to my past, working as a consultant, also in project management. I dealt a lot with portfolio management, project system, and so on. So really looking forward to speaking with KJ about this topic today. So welcome to the show.
Hello, Sebastian, and thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So maybe for the listeners who are not really into the topic of portfolio management, what does it really mean in terms of in the consulting business?
Yes, so it's a good question. So portfolio management, I think everyone can understand it when it comes to our maybe personal finances and personal portfolio strategy. I mean, at what point of time you may want to invest in stocks, maybe government bonds, maybe you buy cryptocurrencies, maybe you invest in real estate to buy your sort of like investment portfolio. So it's on the more enterprise side. And when you consider an organization, it actually happens in a way very, very similarly. So organizations also need to decide where to invest their money and resources and in what initiatives and projects they should allocate capital and based on what factors. So pretty much portfolio management is all about making the right decisions based on the data that is available to you at the particular moment of time.
Yeah. So I like this way of describing this. I mean, every big company, they normally run a lot of projects in parallel. And I mean, obviously running a project is an investment. You know, if you look at it like in your portfolio, look at these individual projects and see what kind of value do they bring to the organization? How do they interfere with each other? You know, there are always dependencies between projects. So this is something in a large organization. It's important to have a look at this and also probably looking at projects who are not performing and saying, okay, I mean, this is something where we're not investing our time and money into it anymore. And Krzysztof is a strategy and technology consulting house. So you have a product, I understand, and you're also offering consulting services.
That's right. So we spotted this niche or this particular challenge in the market a couple of years ago when we were doing strategy consulting project from one of the biggest fertilizer organizations in Europe. And we were asked to sort of like evaluate more than 200 strategic initiatives and come up with an optimal portfolio structure. This is where we sort of learned that there are lack of tools and integrated solutions that allow organizations to have a holistic portfolio view and actually very efficiently make proper business decisions where to invest based on what criteria and so on. So this is how Krzysztof was born. But since you cannot really sort of deploy this type of technology for a large enterprise without consulting, we also specialize in this field and we help our clients to bring the best market practices when it comes to the strategic portfolio management process.
Thank you. So do you have a special focus on industries with your business or is it more like...
Yeah, so pretty much when we speak about strategic portfolio management and portfolio management per se, I would say it is relevant and should be very, very important for every organization, regardless of the industry type and size. Although we primarily work with medium size and large enterprise organizations. Since when you are small, relatively small, you still can have it well under control because you have limited stakeholders. I mean, you can work with multiple data sources. I mean, you don't probably can handle it with reasonable amount of time that you need to spend to get the data under control. But when your business is getting bigger and you have multiple investment options, then you really should look into an integrated solution that gives you a holistic view, and the data set that you can be assured is of a good quality, because there is nothing wrong. There is nothing worse than having a executive dashboard with the data that gives you the results, but you are not really sure whether the EBITDA or NPV value or risk impact is something that you can trust, or maybe you should spend or your team should spend additional time or actually validating the data. So this is something we help clients solve. Speaking of industry sectors, I said in the beginning, the solution is pretty much industry agnostic, because you need it for in pretty much any industry. But our current focus are in the automotive, in the oil and gas sector, FMCG, retail. Yeah, so that's where we focus on right now. But we are talking also with the financial sector, with the energy sector, and with other clients that are actually struggling with this portfolio optimization, because in the end, in the portfolio game, it's all about being able to quickly and efficiently optimize your portfolio, which is, I guess, very, very critical in the current economic and geopolitical environment, when things are so much unpredictable and changing so fast, that you really need to be sure that you have the best possible optimal portfolio structure at any given point of time.
I just wanted to ask you, I mean, you're in business for 15 plus years, but if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, with all these challenges, crisis, the pandemic, and now the war in Europe, how did your business change? I mean, how did the requirements of the clients change when you compare now with, say, before I always say before C, before Corona, 2019, where we all had a much different life. So can you look at certain industries, certain situations where you say, okay, this is really different. We need a much more agile approach, maybe, or we need even more data at hand to make decisions quickly. How does this impact your business?
It's a great question. I think that everything what happened before the Corona started, so before 2020, I think for every business was so much different. I mean, and we are not an exception here. I mean, when you consider our operations and the way we were trying to grow the business at the time was very traditional. I mean, obviously attending events, speaking at events, different conferences, visiting clients, meeting clients in person. It all changed with Corona dramatically. I mean, we had to be very, very agile on this front from day one. And this is something where we sort of leverage on the digital solutions that are out there. And also we sort of pretty much and pretty fast realized that this was something that was very acceptable for most of our clients. I mean, they were not insisting on actually us traveling, spending like almost one day traveling for 1 hour meeting, whereas we could also meet like online and to make it much, much more efficient. So this is more on the change that happened on the operational side. But when you consider the portfolio management again, this was also an eye-opener for many of our clients, because this was exactly the moment they realized that they need to do something about their initiatives. I mean, before the pandemic, and when you consider time from the last decade, from the last economic crisis, 2008 to this crisis, we had a very booming economy almost everywhere. So when the economy is booming and pretty much the business is doing well, you do not need to, I mean, it's not like you don't need to care that much about your portfolio, but you tend to think, okay, we decide, we give it green light now. If it turns out to be a bad project, we simply stop. When the economy is bad and when you have a crisis mode, initially what happened just after the pandemic outbreak, many senior business leaders, they pushed very hard on the brake pedal. So they immediately stopped all the initiatives. Cost cutting was everywhere. very soon they realized that pandemic is not going to be over like in weeks and months. It will probably stay with us for the, 2-3 years. And this is exactly what happened. And they realized that we cannot cut all of or stop all of the initiatives. I mean, in order to stay competitive, we need to be very selective, and we still need to invest and give a green light for some of the projects that are of strategic importance to our organization. And this is where the clients realize the portfolio management and especially agility in portfolio management is crucial, so that you can literally call a meeting, meet with all of your senior business leaders, have a portfolio review, and decide this is where with these projects, we continue this year, and this we need to stop, and some we put on hold until the times are better. This was only much more emphasized by the very recent and very unfortunate war in the Ukraine and the following crisis that we observe in Europe. I mean, the energy crisis, the high inflation. Again, it will not be over like overnight. And I think everybody knows it. Hopefully, this year brings some more stability in the region. However, the inflation and the energy crisis will still be there with us for some time. And it means that organizations and business leaders, they need to be in a position to, we call it always, it's interesting, as a business leaders, you should not only have the view of all the initiatives that are currently undergoing or planned, but you should foremost be able to answer the question why they are in your portfolio, based on what conditions, what criteria. And that's a very, very tricky, but yet very important part of portfolio management.
What value do they bring? Yeah, and is it really necessary? And I mean, we all know, look at Steve Jobs, when he rejoined Apple. I mean, I know you're also an Apple fan. He scratched, 90% of the products. Yeah, and projects internally. Yeah,
that's right.
To focus on only a few initiatives, and the same applies to many corporates. Yeah, they have. I mean, I have a consulting background. I run a consultancy for 22 years, and I know how many things are going on and in parallel. And sometimes, if you work for a big corporate, they're doing sometimes the same thing in different departments, and they don't know about each other. And having a more global solution and a view on the initiatives is crucial, especially in times where budgets are tight and this uncertainty is so high. No one knows what the future brings, and getting your shit together, so to say, is very important.
That's right. And I think you touch upon another very important aspect, which is, the deciding upon an initiative is one thing, but then being able to decide what to do with that initiative, project, however you will name it, is totally different story. So am I able as a business leader to say, yes, after 3 months from start, yes, we continue because of this kind of forecasts, economy models that we've been able to build, or do we need to put it on hold? Do we need to stop it? And actually making this decision to stop is very, very hard thing to do. It's not because it's hard to say no, but it's hard to get the data that will be presented for especially the project teams in a way so that they understand. So in order to make them understand, you need to involve them also from the very beginning, from the start, when you are in this kind of ideation phase and you are thinking, shall we enter this new market? Shall we bring this new product or service to the market? What is the strategic value of it for the organization? What kind of economic outcome can we expect within the next 2, 3, 5, or 10 years? Because usually when you think of strategic initiatives, they are not planned for the next 12, 18 months.
Exactly.
12, 18 months might be like the project realization itself. But the next phase of actually business as usual, if you will, phase is there to be like for the next 5 to 10 years. And that's important.
So you co-founded the organization. Tell us a bit about your journey. So you started in the telecom sector, so technical background. And tell us your milestones. How did you got to founding Quiz Corp and working in this sector?
Yes, with pleasure. So I started in the telecom sector as a project manager, and I worked there also as a product manager on the value-added services and BDS hardware side. I was from the very first moment, I was very close to actual clients. So all of the projects were of an external nature, if you will. I also worked for a couple of years in IT, being responsible for large infrastructure projects and also custom software development deliveries. And actually, I got this opportunity to join Quizter a couple of years back and help to grow the organization from the moment it was there to where we are today. I helped to co-found this initiative and product, and I'm currently responsible for all our marketing, sales, and strategic development initiative. So I think this, for me, the journey to being an entrepreneur was kind of a natural one. I always wanted to stay in touch with the technology, with the clients, but also I wanted to have an influence on how we do things, how we create our strategy, what kind of things shall we try. Of course, it also means that as an entrepreneur, and you know it yourself very well, you're involved in so many things. I mean, sometimes you need to be on the sales side, sometimes you are involved in contract negotiations, sometimes you're involved in marketing activities, strategic development, partnerships, discussions. And as a startup, you don't have a team of, dozens of people that help you with every different thing. But it's fascinating. I mean, you're still growing, and since the technology and everything around us changes so quickly, I think you have the ability and possibility to sort of have hands-on so many things that are actually trendy right now. So that's very cool.
Which is also the difficult part, no? I mean, having hands on too many things that trendy really can divert your focus, yeah? And being interested in technology. I mean, this is a playing field which can really turn into a big nightmare of distraction, yeah? I mean, seeing all these changes at the moment, AI on the rise. I always say, hey, 23 is the year of AI because there's so many companies popping up, so many new services. What do you think, looking at artificial intelligence, how do you think this will change portfolio management?
It's a very, very good question. Actually, AI, especially since, I guess, November last year with the release of Chat GPT-3, I'm not sure if you've tried it or not.
Oh, yeah. We love it. My team loves it. I love it.
It really makes a difference. I mean, it's the first type of AI or language model that can really be useful, although it has some limitations. Coming back to portfolio management, I think that the future is in predictive analytics and sourcing the right data for an organization. So, for instance, you can spot on predict some currency fluctuations, or you can have an up-to-date view on commodity prices that may actually impact your entire portfolio. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, for quite some time still, we will not have a crystal ball that will tell you that energy price will be so much per kilowatt like in March 2023.
Exactly.
We are far away from that. If we ever get there, it's like, I think that you cannot really predict with certainty, although you should be able to create certain scenarios, whether they're simulations, best case, worst case, optimal scenarios, that should give you a good picture of what may happen if. And then with the if, you should actually be able to match the actual value of the variable that you're sort of monitoring. And this is what actually is on our roadmap, at least when it comes to the further development of the product. So we enable this predictive analytics. Maybe also at one point, you will be in a position to sort of extract the non-confidential data and information from a portfolio. So say if you're an automotive supplier, and of course you may specialize in certain things, whether it's tires, brakes, heating systems, and so on, your strategy is confidential. Your strategic initiatives are super confidential, but you still are sort of in the same ecosystems where other, like suppliers are. And maybe extracting this non-confidential information may help everyone to better optimize their portfolios. But
are you running, is this a SaaS solution, or is it
it's from an architectural point of view, it's very close to a SaaS because we are cloud-based, we utilize AWS. I mean, we can set up a new instance within minutes, literally. But from an actual operational model standpoint, it still is not something that you can configure within minutes. I mean, you still need to spend some time on actually transferring the data models and so on.
I understand, but thinking ahead about using, extracting confidential information and having a more like an industry view, you could run reports across different clients and see how projects perform and look about risks, and add this as a service to your customer base. Looking at trends.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the end goal. So as a portfolio manager or a board member that need to decide on the strategy capital allocation, you would like to see maybe at one stage, how is your portfolio performing against the industry, the other organizations that are out there. Even if you don't name them by sort of the company name, having this general type of non-confidential information will be crucial to see, okay, are we on the industry average? Are we above the average? Or are we underperforming? Exactly.
Yeah, and see trends. And I think this is the future. And there, AI could probably help making sense out of trends and certain information you have in the system.
That's correct. And the AI, like with ChatGPT, I guess, another use case totally, AI will be there to sort of make the work easier, so that you can, I mean, we already now free up to 50% of time of the analysts, even executives, so they don't spend time on actually, again, ensuring that the quality of data is right or making the people work on sort of like gathering the actual information. It should be available on hand. So they have much more time on strategy, to focus on the strategy, to have a much more holistic, say, helicopter view across the industry, but also see how maybe a particular industry might be sort of overlapping with another industry, which is something that nobody has thought would be even possible or could make sense.
Yeah.
But nowadays, industries overlap.
Exactly.
And this is exactly what is happening.
Or looking at data from, for example, suppliers, or your customers, and taking this data to see trends in the market and to see potential changes which affecting your business. All this, it goes big into business analytics, but this is something which I can see as potential areas where portfolio management systems can really help making better decisions for the customers.
That's right. And another example, and this is happening already now. I mean, you have so many data sources and data marketplaces that are offering you the valuable insights about your industry, whether these are about the potential sales volumes of your customers. And what is happening already right now with the proper IT architecture, you can easily connect with those systems and have it automated and get an up-to-date view of actually your customer business case. So your business case gets updated and your portfolio gets updated automatically whenever you log into it. And the agility and in the portfolio management will really be crucial. So it will not be anymore a process of, I don't know, like 2 times, 1 time in a year portfolio review. We meet every November and we start gathering the data beginning of this October to this important meeting in November. And then we decide what happens the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, what happens if another, hopefully not, like this black swan or whatever other type of event occurs at the beginning of the year? You need to be able to reprioritize.
It's much more real time. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
business is. I mean, this is what we learned in the last few years. You know, you have to know what's going on, and you have to react basically real time to the events. Otherwise, it can be very critical because there's so many unexpected events happening in the world, which have an impact on all of our lives and all of our businesses.
We always say to our clients that we are not providing any crystal ball. I mean, we cannot predict the next events, but at least we can manage uncertainty. And uncertainty management is exactly what you said, is building up these scenarios. So even if it's like, say, now I think everyone is more into this kind of pessimistic scenario planning, meaning what if something goes wrong? Are we still bringing the value or not? Being able to create those scenarios can get you prepared for this type of events. And again, hopefully they will not occur, but at least you are prepared for it and you know what to do when they actually occur. So this is a critical aspect of portfolio management as well.
You are from the eastern part of Europe. I grew up in East Germany. So we both spent some time in Dresden. Yeah. When I always talk about uncertainty, I always tell the story about VUCA. Yeah, this acronym the Americans created basically when the Berlin Wall came down, you know, and you had before you had quite a clear separation of powers within the East and the West. And then after Perestroika and the wall came down, this all sort of been very volatile. You know, you had different countries popping up, different political interests. So they phrased this acronym VUCA, which means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I mean, when you look at the last years, we live in a big VUCA world and we need antidotes to these challenges and the system. And it's not only the system. I mean, we don't want to talk about tech and talk about system, but it's the way of thinking. The way of strategically managing your portfolio is more and more important in those days. So I think the audience could learn a lot from this conversation, even if they're just running a small company. But also in a small company, you have different initiatives and you really have to sometimes say no to things you do.
Absolutely.
And I always say no, saying no, as you said, is most difficult decision, but often the most important one.
Absolutely. That's very true.
So is there anything else you'd like to share? Where do people can find you on the internet?
I think the best way to connect with me would be on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And if anyone is interested in actually maybe learning more about portfolio management, what are some of the best practices, I'll be more than happy to share. And as you said, the VUCA, I couldn't agree more. Actually, we've done a couple of webinars about it, and also we spoke about it at a couple of events last year. It is a clear VUCA environment that we observe today. It will probably stay with us. So I think right now we are at the moment, it should be less of a buzzword, but it should be more of an actionable set of, again, initiative, processes, changes into an organization so you are prepared for it. And as said, portfolio management, you said technology is only one side of it, but the mindset is a totally different side. I mean, with the right mindset, agile mindset, and the mindset of collaboration, you can really change things for good when it comes to your portfolio management.
Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. As I said, lots of gold nuggets people can dig out and take for their business, if it's a small startup or a large enterprise. Thank you so much, Krzysztof, for your time, and all the best in this challenging time and world we live in at the moment.
Thank you for having me again, Sebastian. It was a pleasure. Thank you.